Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. This is the season wrap-up and the opening of the off-season pods. We are out here on a beautiful, crisp January night, smoking cigars, drinking by the fire, watching OU. So far, halftime beating OSU in basketball. I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
Lucas.
And we're without Jay. Shout out to Jay. He is down in Florida.
He's in Boca Raton.
He's going to be all over that shuffleboard court.
Senior living facility.
I need a picture of Jay with a fedora as soon as possible.
Him and Marty. He is at a retirement home, living it up, doing whatever he does down there. But we've got a lot to cover. We want to talk about kind of a wrap-up to the season and then a preview of what's to come and our take on things. And we're going to dive in deep to a balance sheet approach to it. We're going to look at the pros and cons, the weaknesses and the strengths of OU football as hopefully an honest assessment from all of us right now. But before all that, I wanted to start with a salute to a guy. I want to send out a salute to Ken, who was a good friend who sat behind me for 22 years and passed away last week. He was the guy that sat right behind me at the OU games. And I found out last night that he passed away on Thursday. And so, salute to him.
Yeah,
so
cheers to Ken.
Ken.
Absolutely.
Good man.
Hopefully he
great
never told you
guy.
to sit down.
He never told me to sit down. He was a good guy.
Can't beat that.
He was a hell of a fan and a really, really cool guy. And I don't know how long he had those seats. My parents were there before I moved over from the student section. So, real good guy. So, salute to Ken. Since we talked last, we've had a national championship in football.
Or something like that.
I think Georgia got crowned national champion, and it was sort of like a consolation game for one of them, and the other one, it was kind of strange. I think that was the biggest loss in the history of bowl games.
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
in a national title. Yeah,
that was rough. It was just such a flop in terms of just.
You'd think O'Reilly was on the sidelines. Oh wait, O'Reilly was on the sidelines.
I mean, I thought after TCU went down and scored on that drive to make it 10-7,
I
was like,
we're about to have.
I was like,
here.
Georgia's definitely better than them, but this could be a game within. This could be a 10 to 14 point game.
Could be a lot like the Michigan game.
And then it was nothing.
And in my pool, I had Georgia winning, so I needed Georgia to win so I could finish in the money, and so I was sweating it for about 5.5 minutes there, and then all of a sudden Georgia said, "Nope, don't worry about it. We got this," and they took care of them. So it was interesting after we had two really, really good semifinals, the best semifinals probably we've ever had,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I mean, we've had one good, one bad, but this was two tremendous games, and then just an absolute dud in the championship. Georgia's very, very good. TCU was in over their heads, overmatched for sure. I think they were just happy to be there as it was all said and done. It's kind of nice. It takes a little bit of the heat off of us historically as you look back. And there's been many of those games. Ohio State got blanked 37-0, I think it was, by Clemson that one year.
They got murdered by LSU.
There have been several different real big they got murdered by LSU after we got murdered by LSU. And there've been big ones, but this one
USC.
is just one more in that long chain of games that were disappointingly, from a fan standpoint of wanting to see a competitive game, disappointingly one-sided. Now let's turn our attention to OU and the 2022 season and look at it from a balance sheet point of view. I've got my views on it. If you want me to start, and Jay sent his views, and then you guys can also provide yours. So I'm going to give my assets and liabilities. So looking at assets, now on a balance sheet, it's supposed to balance. So anytime that assets outweigh liabilities, it means you've got equity. And so I don't have equity as a category. I'm going to leave it up to the listener to decide if these assets outweigh these liabilities. And I think that's the real crux of what we're trying to get at. Do OU's assets right now outweigh their liabilities? And you think of it as strengths and weaknesses too. So assets. Aside from the obvious, aside from the history and what we've got, I want to be very specific to this administration, this coaching staff, this team on the field that we've just seen, team on the field to come. Top 5 recruiting class. That's amazing. Top 10 transfer portal class. with a little more to be seen in the next day about what will transpire there, but still going to be a very good, I think, transfer portal class. Now, that's ranked by just the incoming. It doesn't rank the outgoing, but if I were to guess, I would say our net is probably top 10. You've got some other teams in the top 10 and about that vicinity who are actually losing a lot. Like OSU is really high in the transfer portal, but that's just because they're looking at only the guys coming in. They're not looking at all the guys
Now, if you're looking at them as a balance sheet, they're
in trouble.
Definitely in the red.
Excuse me. I've got improved strength and conditioning as compared to prior years. I think that's a big strength and asset that we've got going for us. Strong fan and donor support. I think that through all of this, through a 6 and 7 season, it's been pretty clear that we've got pretty strong support from the fans and donors. Low expectations outside the program, coupled with a strong chip on the shoulder mentality inside the program. So I think that's an asset. We don't have the burden of having really high expectations when you look nationally. That has, we started at this point last year, we were kind of griping about how there wasn't a lot of respect for us, and now that respect is really going to be hard-pressed to earn. I think that's probably an asset versus having really high expectations that it's difficult to fulfill. Strong commitment among core players and past players. So when you look at the players currently on the roster who have stuck around, they seem to have a really strong commitment to what they're doing. And then if you look at past players, I'm talking about all the legacies that have stuck around and that seem to be making a big commitment to it in the SOL program and everything else. That seems to be a big asset. I think that we haven't had that strong of past player support in probably since the middle of the Stoops years. Strong commitment from recruits despite the poor season and the bad start to Brent Venables' tenure. So what did we lose? One recruit, arguably, not even probably that because of the season. We lost the receiver to Texas,
and we lost Vasic.
Yeah, to Texas.
He was a defensive guy.
Yeah, and so those are probably the only losses. It's hard to even say.
Hicks was 50-50.
Hicks was 50-50, and I don't know if it had anything to do with our win-loss record.
And
we're more to a place with as worse. Worse.
We're more in on Hicks with this staff than we ever would have been with the prior.
For sure.
Last asset on my books: coaches who are in demand. This was an ad from today, so they're being targeted by other programs. We hear about Valai that's being interested, or Ole Miss has interest. We hear rumors that Levy's got interest at Alabama. That tells us something. We obviously did not have a lot of demand for our past coaches in the past 6 years or so. No one was trying to get Mike Stoops. No one was trying to get Grinch. And then you go down the list of different coaches and assistant coaches and such, position coaches. They were not in high demand.
Nope.
Before I get to you guys, let me list my liabilities because these I think are going to resonate as well. I've got one long one, so I'll just read the whole thing. I didn't know how to categorize it. Coaching decisions and strategy. Losing conventionally rather than winning unconventionally. Conservative decisions down the stretch like not kicking onside against Baylor, kicking a field goal against West Virginia, not playing aggressively on defense in the final possession against West Virginia, etc. It seems like we had many, many examples of coaching decisions that were very conservative and cost us.
Clock management.
Add to that poor clock management. You'll get your turn. Or are you reading my mind? Poor clock management, especially, but not only in Bedlam. Bedlam was probably the most egregious version of it, even though we won that game. Lack of player development, especially at quarterback. Bad, half-hearted coaching tactics like keeping a quarterback on the field in a Wildcat formation against Texas and others, and then basically not using the Wildcat at any point after Texas. And then, I don't want to make too much about this, but I think it is something that is a red flag, the gimmicky smoke and mirrors decision of having Dillon Gabriel suit up and go through warm-ups before the Texas game. That's one giant liability category. I'll add to that two more. Lack of experience depth. That's just a general liability that we have inherited coming into where we are, and we're going to have to and potentially can work our way through that, and maybe we've made a lot of strides to do so. And then lack of heart among some players, and that may not be an issue past this past year.
Yep.
We may have shed that that weight of those players that just didn't seem to have the heart into it. That's my assets and liabilities. What do you guys got?
I resonate with a lot of those actually, and I unfortunately left my list at home, so I'll have to do some of this off memory. But a couple of the big ones, kind of resonating with some of what you just said, is improved recruiting amongst the coaching staff and improved recruits that we're bringing in. So actual recruiters that I think are looking across the board, not only at very explicit talent, but also evaluations that are hopefully going to turn into higher level talent than what we've had in the past. Another one that was on my asset list was, like you just mentioned, I think at the top as well with your assets, is a buy-in to the culture. So, and that's across the board. That's with current players, that's with past players, that's with coaching. I think we have a cornerstone that we're trying to build off of. So I really agree with that. Next one is we have our talent seems to be young talent. So we don't have a lot of talented guys who are aging out and leaving. A lot of our talent that we hopefully are going to carry this year and into the future is young talent. Freshmen, sophomore, underclassmen. Another one that was on my list was the Soul Team, the Soul Mission. I think that is a big draw, and you can group that in with culture, but I think it probably stands on its own as well. We've heard multiple occasions where we've had numerous recruits come in and say, that Soul Team that really kind of did it for me, established an at-home type of mentality. So that was a few of my assets, and then
those are good assets.
Also, from a liability standpoint, I think one that I had on the balance sheet as well as on the asset list that I will carry over to the liability list. So it's kind of a wash. Is a lot of our talent is young talent. So not a lot of experience, not a lot of guys who have had Division I football snaps. And kind of to piggyback off that, we have a coaching staff that seems averse to playing guys who don't have those snaps, regardless of their potential or their athleticism. It looks like we are going with the mentality that we like having guys within the system at least a year before we're going to give them quality playing time. Another liability, I would say, is a relatively new head coach who sometimes lets his coordinator mentality overtake his head coaching expertise and the focus that he should have as a head coach. So as Lucas has mentioned, and as you mentioned, Steve, the clock management scenarios that are off because we might be focused too much on what the defense is doing or what it looks like on the field, as opposed to, well, does it make sense to call a timeout here? And then maybe one of the last things that I can think of that I had written down is still a green offensive coordinator. So to go along with a quarterback that may not have been as developed as we'd like, an offensive coordinator who doesn't really look like he knows what his identity is or what he wants it to be. And those two things may go hand in hand. It may be limitations on both ends, but at the end of the day, they're both liabilities, and they were liabilities this season that I think probably cost us some points and potentially even some games. So I know I had more written down, but in a gist, that's kind
good.
of what I had.
That's a good list. Lucas, what to add?
I'm not a finance bro, so I didn't do the homework on balance sheets.
So for the layman, let's just run through your pros and cons.
I mean,
wait, are those going to be up to FASB standards?
I can't disagree with a lot of what y'all said. I'm the more negative one of the group, so obviously I had a problem with the coaching on both sides of the ball a lot this year. The clock management was horrific in many instances. I do agree that you can't complain at all about a top 5 recruiting class after a horrible season. And to our standards, 6 and 7's horrible.
It is.
But to be able to pull a top 5 recruiting class is awesome. You're getting some transfers in need positions. You're trying to upgrade your defensive line, even if it's role players. We pulled, Trace Ford has had injury problems at OSU, but he's shown glimpses of being really good, where he'll come here and probably just be a role player, which that's the kind of depth you need, especially in today's game when you're running guys in and out on the defensive line, and specifically to try to get more of a push. Having as many guys that are quality players in that position really helps.
Well, they'll push each other too.
Yeah,
in
they
practice
push each other
and all that.
We just found out we got the left tackle from Stanford. He's got 30 plus starts, in Power 5 conference. So we lost Harrison, so we needed somebody to come fill that void. He's got 1 year left. That's a guy hopefully we can count on to kind of sustain that side of the field.
And it speaks to recruiting as well with him because we flipped him from Nebraska.
Yeah.
So
Nebraska's claiming we threw the bag at him. I don't think there's the bag.
I love
throwing.
being in the position where we're throwing the bag. I love it.
Yeah, so watching this Bedlam game, we've got this horrible ref with the floppy hair that looks like
I
Davis
hate
Love
that
III.
guy. He hates OU.
We went to the Iowa State game, and he really took charge of screwing us in that one, and he's calling this Bedlam match, which really is disappointing. But
Frustrating.
anyway.
That's going to taint your views on everything.
Yeah, seeing him just really is a downer. But, yeah, there's this during the season, we kept talking about fixable, and I was adamant that most of the stuff that was going wrong was not fixable. During this offseason, bringing in a bunch of young, really good kids that hopefully will get a chance, the Atabores and the really elite kids, Bowen. I'm hoping these guys can play some of this season and really give us depth and the possibility of big plays on defense, which we've sorely been lacking. For years, we haven't had a guy like a striker that would come in and literally turn the game around with a sack fumble. Or
Yep.
I feel like we dropped so many interceptions last year that could have been difference makers, and I don't know that we've upgraded there or not. But literally, if you can get 2 or 3 guys, new blood, that bring toughness and just aggressiveness to the defense, that could change the outcome of 2 or 3 games by having 1 or 2 major plays. We saw it in the Cincinnati and the Baltimore playoff game. That game was neck and neck the whole way, and Cincinnati forces a fumble, runs it back 98 yards for a touchdown, and that's the difference in the game. It can just be one play. And how many times this season we lost by a field goal, we lost by a touchdown, and we were just like, if one play could be
play
the difference
somewhere in the game.
in a 9-3 season and a 6-6 season. So I'm hopeful that what we brought in this recruiting class on the defensive side of the ball can be the difference in winning and losing those games. The offensive side of the ball, Jackson Arnold looks to be awesome. I watched more Denton Guyer games this year than I've probably watched any high school football in my life because it was televised a lot of times. But hopefully he's a future at quarterback at OU, because we've lacked that the last couple of years. Because Caleb had growing pains. Spencer didn't continue to advance.
Yep.
Yeah, he
Gabriel
seems like
last
the
year,
prototypical guy that we're really looking for.
no matter the stats people keep saying about how Gabriel was number 2 in this, number 3 in this in the conference and all this, I watched every game with my own eyes, and he is a serviceable quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback.
No, he's not.
And
He's
need
above
that.
average, but he's not
We need
elite
that.
by any means. He's not even
Yeah.
touching elite.
Yeah, and you say a couple things that actually jog my memory on a couple things I had written down is on the liability side again is the trace amount of the former staff's identity still in this team that we still have, and some of that DNA is good. I think the Stutzman of the world, hopefully we can chalk him up to an asset, but there's still some guys out there, or at least there were maybe up until hopefully the portal and at the end of the day, but there's still some guys out there that still have that old staff mentality maybe and are still on that the back half of that curve that you need to kind of exercise out of the system to really get some fresh legs in there. And then on the field goal topic, I think that is a liability right now. Is we don't have a guy who can go win us a game, or we can trust to win us a game with 3 points when we need it. So
Yeah, that's key. That's a real important little additive that you want to have as a championship team. You don't have to have the best kicker in the entire world. You just need strong dependability there. I wanted to comment on a couple things you said, Lucas, and they really dovetail with what you're saying, Connor, in the opposite sense in terms of a hope that we can turn some liabilities into assets, at least by just exercising some things out of the program. And that is partly it's a mentality. When you have a mentality that you can't win, or you lack that I'm going to make a play mentality,
Yep.
you just don't make plays that you otherwise would make. And I think that's something that we need to garner and develop. It needs to be part of the culture. And honestly, if you look back at not just the Stoops era, but go deep into the Switzer era, you saw guys make plays, make things happen, and other fans of other teams would get so angry because they're like, it is like magic.
Yeah.
But it becomes magical in a couple of respects. One, you just believe you're going to make it happen, and you don't drop interceptions because you just don't.
Yep.
And you make plays that you have to make. Like the most prototypical is the Roy Williams Superman play, a play he's not supposed to do, and yet he does it, and it's epic, and it wins the football game in a way that we'll never forget. But in the other respect is that just adding talent at key positions, steel strengthens steel. You get guys that improve each other's play. If you can get a defensive threat, a defensive lineman, a linebacker, somebody who commands a double team, then you open up things for other guys on the field. If you got a corner who can shut down that side, you can get to a point where they just can't throw to that side of the field, and it makes them one-dimensional, or it takes a dimension out of their game, and we've lacked that. If we can start to add that, it really can compound fast for us. It's tough to take a team like Georgia and add much to a team like that because they're so damn good.
And they all believe that they are that difference maker.
Oh, they do.
We don't have that guy who
we have to have
stepped up.
that belief.
Yeah,
and talent.
It starts with one guy, and then that one guy is an infectious, positive disease in a sense.
Yeah, it's a contagion. No, it is.
Where, Billy Bowman's a guy who's out there who's just laying it all out. And not only is he laying it all out, he's doing his job well.
And Stoops used to say it was that championships breed other championships. And he used to say how you have these other sports who start to get a little bit greedy for it and want to. Well, it's the same thing just at an individual level. You start to want that success. So I'm going to say that you can't add a lot to a Georgia team because they're so talented, but a team like OU, actually, you can make a pretty big difference really fast. If you throw a guy like a Tommy Harris on this team, and that defense is going to rise tremendously because of just what that one player brings. Tommy Harris is not going to bring as much to a Georgia team. So we have low-hanging fruit right now that we can capitalize on if we capitalize on it and get talent in good positions and get them to excel, and at the same time just shed that identity and that almost monkey on the back thinking that we can't, it's an albatross. So it's just like thinking that we can't succeed, thinking that we can't do as good. I don't want to get too mystical about the idea that you got to want it more or just believe. That's not enough, but it does matter. You got to have confidence, and if you've got talent and you have success, it can breed more confidence that can elevate you to a level you didn't know you could achieve, and you can play above your head.
Yep.
Now, props to Kirby Smart on making his team think that they were
Yes,
doubted.
Absolutely.
I don't remember seeing one major outlet the entire year thinking Georgia was not any good. And then after they win the national championship, there were multiple players doing interviews, and they're all like, nobody thought we could do it. Everybody doubted us.
It was even before.
I'm like, what are you talking about, dude?
In this day and age, when
You were
they have
the
as
odds-on
much
favorite.
access to media, how did he pull that off? That's
Well,
amazing.
he told them, he probably pulled like 3 newspaper clippings
He probably had plans.
where people said Georgia lost 5 first-round defensive guys or whatever it was that they had in the NFL draft, and that there's no way they can be as good this season. And he just exploded that into thinking everybody thinks you guys suck, and then it worked.
I will volunteer this podcast to be that role. We can be the scapegoats. We can be the ones who say that OU sucks. Every one of those players suck. They
That's
can't
my
do
job.
anything. We'll all 3 pile on. We'll get Jay to pile on. I'll picket in front of their houses, whatever it takes.
I could not believe when I heard that.
To do the reverse psychology to get those guys to believe in themselves.
Yeah, that was
I will
shocking
do it. That was
after the
that's a
game.
great point. That's a really good point. Well, let me read Jay. He had a bunch to say. Not a surprise. Jay always has a lot of deep thoughts. So here we go. He starts with positives on offense. Returning quarterback that, although doesn't have as high a ceiling as we would like, should have a higher floor this season. That's a good point. More comfortable in the system and under the spotlight that a quarterback has to endure at a place like OU. Arnold pushing him should help him as well, along with the scheme allowing Dylan Gabriel to use his legs, and that's a good point. That we can free up Dylan to use his legs
if you have
more
confidence
because
in
you're
a
not as
backup
worried
quarterback.
about it. Running backs are young and full of potential for huge plays that we have lacked for several years. Obviously, they need to keep improving in every facet. By season end, it could be really something incredible to watch. I'd agree. Wide receiver is scary, to be honest. Talented but unproven. Need Farouk, Gibson, Anderson to really step up and become the guys. In my opinion, we have lacked wide receiver development for several years, and here's to hoping Emmett changes that, the new incoming wide receiver coach from Texas Tech. Offensive line will make or break the team. I've been harsh on Coach B, but it's time he shows why he was so highly regarded early on. I would have to agree with that.
Yep.
The lack of depth, the lack of development in the last 3 to 4 years has been putrid at best. I'm hoping that had to do with strength and conditioning, which in its second season should start to really show improvement. Was really pleased with how they played in the bowl game. I agree. Defense. I'm expecting a fairly large jump in terms of performance on the field and in the stats. Interior line is still a concern, but it's good enough to not be the reason the defense isn't good enough, though. Really excited about edge infusion of talent from portal and high school. That's a good point. Downs and Grimes had a down year last year, but there was nobody to push them or replace them with, but that's not the case this year. So that's sort of echoing some things we've mentioned. I suspect it's going to be really difficult to keep Adebore, is that how you say
Adebawore.
off the field. Stutz looked like the lights came on a bit in the bowl game. I'd say in a few last games of the season here and there, and even more so in the bowl game.
He just
Editorializing
needs a little bit more speed
this
to
a
be
bit.
super effective.
He was decisive and filled correct gaps more often. His play is imperative to us having a very successful defense. Excited as could be to see Kanak get his shot. Secondary is strength of the team, in my opinion. We have upgraded that unit in terms of athleticism so much, so quickly, especially the safety position. Bowman, what's S&D mean? Bowman, maybe Andy, typo. Bowman and Pearson at safety might be best combo we've had in nearly a decade. Add in McCullough and Cheetah, Woody at one corner, and the other spot is up for grabs, but whoever wins that will have definitely earned it. Can't be excited enough about the direction of the secondary. We have legit 4 to 5 star depth now. Interested to see how long it takes Bowen to see the field. It's hard to stomach 6 and 7 season, but I understand the house cleaning process. Looking at portal exits landing spots, it's easy to see we had a lot of dead weight to get rid of. So that's a really good point. The guys who were losing to the portal, even though some of them came with good pedigrees in terms of star rating, they just didn't end up in very good programs upon their exit from OU.
I didn't see, did David Agwebu did he sign anywhere?
Not yet.
Yeah, not
And
yet.
tomorrow's the last day, right?
Yeah.
Who went to Texas State?
That wasn't
Ellis,
Agwebu. That
Josh-
was, yeah,
it was
Joshua Ellison. Yeah.
And then who went to Josh Eaton went to Texas State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody went to Memphis, I think, didn't they?
Yeah.
Is that
I
Ellison?
thought that was Ellison, yeah.
Yeah, that was Ellison. Maybe he did go to Texas. Maybe Agwebu did go. We'll look that
No,
up.
Josh
while we're-
Eaton.
Agwebu
Josh
hasn't-
Eaton.
I don't think
Josh
Agwebu
Eaton
Is he?
went to
Okay.
Texas
He's gone,
State,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. This roster is now 80% Brent Venables. I'm going to assume that's an estimate, but maybe that's close. So we should start seeing real improvement. I agree. I think the staff is really good, and they now have a year together now to work out some kinks, etc. on that end as well. Overall, pumped for the spring, ready to see the young guys, ready to see the veterans step up, guaranteed national championship in 2023. All right, he may not have said that last thing about the national championship, but I would agree with, I think those are great points that Jay's saying, and don't really disagree necessarily with anything that we've said. There's been a lot of agreement. This is the pod of agreement for sure. We're all
It's crazy what a
something,
little
yeah.
bit of perspective will do
Him
for
being
Yeah.
so, what did he say about the staff there at the end?
He did have some praise that I think you wouldn't agree with. He
Yeah.
said, "I think the staff is really good.
I'm not there.
You're not there yet,
I
but
don't-
you hold out. You're not going to say they can't be, but you're saying you don't have enough evidence to
Right.
agree
Levy
with that
hasn't shown
statement.
me anything. I'll die on that hill until he does. I'm still underwhelmed by Ted Roof as defensive coordinator, even though it seems like Brent took it over more so towards later half of the season. I don't understand why you have a guy that I don't think is a major recruiter and I don't think Ted Roof is a big go-getter in the recruiting world. And if Brent has the heavy hand in the defensive play calling, I don't know why you don't get a younger guy that can recruit,
Can get out on the trail
and the defensive
and get
coordinator.
out there.
Do we
Sure.
not think that he's a recruiting
Ted
addition?
Roof?
Yeah.
I
I'm wondering
don't.
if that's what he actually brings to the table. I don't know.
I don't think it is. He
Also,
doesn't
do
seem
we
like the most?
do we know if his son is coming back? If TD's coming back?
I don't know.
I mean, he missed this season, so I would imagine he would have a medical year. But does he step on the field? We kept hearing last year, well, that's a major loss because he would have been a coach on the on the field. I'm like, well, he's still on the sideline.
Yeah, we were rolling our eyes after
because
that.
he hurt his shoulder or whatever.
Yeah.
He can still. tutor
I don't
guys
think we
on the
lack
sideline.
coaches on the field. I don't think
Yeah.
that's really what we need.
So, yeah, I have to disagree with Jay in the really good coaching side of that.
Something that
I
I
haven't seen it.
Something that I've had a critique about, at least, it was after the Aguebu announcement to the transfer portal, and Stutzman coming out saying anybody who doesn't think this guy's valuable to this program or hasn't done great things or doesn't represent the standard is mistaken. Blah blah blah. I think that's pretty frustrating for me to say. There was an obvious gap in some talent there, and I don't think anybody, at least a sane or rational fan, is disputing the fact that Aguebu had some good days, had some bad days, and didn't represent what OU is wanting to be. But at the end of the day, I'm not here for a participation trophy either.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
I
want to
think-
see some of the great, you're moving on, and as fans are out there and they'll always have their criticisms, but don't put your head down and do your job and say, all right, we're gonna go get better, as opposed
I
to
took that as a buddy taking up for his buddy.
Yeah.
And maybe doing too much to elevate the trolls. There's a lot of fans who are trolls. You see them out there on Twitter. They're out there. I don't know if they're Joe from Lawton calling into the Sports Animal or whatever it is. There's a lot of guys with some crappy takes and a willingness to say some really bad things about young guys that are doing a lot, and they have they're the ones out there putting their blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. We're just guys on the sidelines criticizing, and it's a little bit frustrating. I don't care if you're a 60-year-old man or if you're a 13-year-old girl. I don't care who you are. You just shouldn't criticize someone else doing a job in the way that some of those criticisms come. And at the same time, it's fair to say that Aguebu is not up to the standard. At least what we saw is not up to the standard of what we want in that position.
to start at Oklahoma.
To start at a place that pursues championships. He just didn't pan out. I mean, we've seen that time and again with guys in many programs.
We criticized
it just happens.
Broyles and Deshaun White
Right.
for the majority of the season. Now, White, we gave praise to the last 4 or 5 games. He played a lot better. Seemed like he grasped the defense better.
Yep.
Broyles was the captain of the defense, blah, blah, blah. But, I saw some pure hatred on Twitter when he was, made his farewell to OU, blah, 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 post. And people are like, thank God you're gone. You sucked the whole
That's
time.
awful.
Yeah,
That
see,
should-
that's
awful.
there's
You
no
can't do that.
there's no
Yeah.
reason for
There's
that.
no-
Doesn't
there's
make any
reason-
sense. It's not like he was sabotaging OU.
Yeah. He was
didn't
trying his
lie to
hardest.
you.
It's
Yeah.
not like he was trying to
He
lose
didn't
games.
come in with a false resume
Or blow
that he
coverages.
fluffed up. Come on, get over it,
Yeah,
guys.
he's not George Santos.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a little frustrating. It's frustrating to know those fans are out there, and I think Stutz and the others are just taking up for their guy a little bit there, and so I understand why they're doing it. At the same time, the things they say, if you take them literally, are not true.
Yeah.
Because he may have embodied a lot of what it was. He may have been a great teammate and everything else. He just wasn't going to be and shouldn't be a starter at OU based on what we saw, based on what we expect
Yeah.
legitimately in terms of what we want on the field.
That linebacker group is deep,
Mm-hmm.
like with young guys.
The
I
problem
mean,
is we only play 2 linebackers.
I know, and from what it looks like, there's not a lot of rotation there.
So one of you made
No.
a good point about I think it was you, Connor. You were saying that we don't work a lot of young guys in. That'll be something that is a liability and a weakness if we don't start to develop and either develop guys or be willing to let them see the field sooner.
Gavin Sawchuk is
That'll
a
be
prime
interesting.
example.
With
and
the
so that's a
talent gap of what
concern.
we have coming in to what we've seen the last couple of years, it seems like, we were a top 5 class, and the majority of that was defense. You added Jackson Arnold, you added a receiver
and a running back.
and a running back, but the majority of this top 5
O-lineman.
class is defense.
Yeah.
And that should translate this year to not just pushing in practice, but like we said earlier, some of those guys better see the field,
Yeah.
and not just in the first 3 games of the season.
Right.
Those guys should be seeing the field when it matters in
They should be
conference
contributors.
play. Yeah.
They should
Yeah.
be contributors.
Yes.
So that'll be telling. I mean, this will be. We don't get a lot of second years at OU to evaluate guys. This will be a time to evaluate Brent Venables and say where really are you. We're going to know a lot more a year from now.
Yeah, a year from now.
We're going to know a
Yeah.
lot more.
I think
and
so, too.
I'm a little excited and a little scared about what that's going to look like, because that could be really good or really bad. And I think we'll have more than twice as much information a year from now.
Yeah.
Because this has been tainted by the legacy and what we inherited, what we were saddled with. You got a lot of opportunity in the second year. I'm speaking and thinking directly of Venables, but the entire staff and the entire program, to really show what you are capable of doing and what you're going to bring. So I'm not going to say it's make or break, but it's getting pretty close.
Yeah.
When you look at this second year and the positioning they're in, it's a good place to be. Had we had a top 15 class, that'd been a little different story.
Yep.
Where in that case, we're saying, all right, he's building it, but it's going to take years. Give him time. He's his own worst enemy here, feeding the monster. He's going to put himself in a position where you don't have a lot of time to have grace. You got to either win, or we got to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
I had a listener question from my guy Josh,
All right.
probably 3 weeks ago, and he kind of alluded to the idea of what's the leash for Brent Venables. We start off with a 6-7. If next year we don't see at least an 8-4, let's say, then I would say we are very disappointed in his trajectory. If we break off another 7-6, let's say, or even 8-5,
okay.
it's still not
You're throwing
good
in
enough.
a bowl game. Uh-huh.
Yeah, throwing in the bowl game. Which the bowl game, I guess you don't have to count.
Yeah,
that
I wouldn't
because,
factor in the bowl game at all.
So
Yeah.
6-6 this year. If we're not at least 8-4 next year, then it's a very disappointing season.
I'd agree. I'd have to agree.
So I don't. If you go 8-4, you can't fire Brent. I mean, if you go 7-5, you can't fire Brent Venables. But at some point,
It's hot seat. It's warm seat.
Yes,
It's somewhere
I
in
think
between
you
now.
have to have 3 years, unless he goes 2-10 next year. Let's say if he goes 2-10,
Yeah.
he's gone.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think the leash also. I mean, I think if you see another, 6-6 or even a 7-5, there's grace for Venables with the assumption that you need to start cleaning out the cabinets a little bit from a
sure,
staffing
staff changes.
Staff
perspective.
changes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll give you another year. I'll give you next year with those staff changes to really make a difference.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you really have to start
Well,
thinking
you have to make
this
staff
wasn't the
changes.
right fit.
Otherwise, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Because if let's say that it's a 2-10 would be just shockingly bad.
Well, out of conference schedule.
but yeah,
so
let's
you're going to win 3
say-
games out of conference.
Let's say 5-7.
5-7.
And you don't go to a bowl game. If you don't make staff changes, that tells me you don't know what's going on, or you've got such loyalty to guys that you don't have your focus on winning. And so you have to have staff changes, and then you're still on the hot seat because of the position you're in, and you got 1 more year to really show us progress. Unfortunately, we could see a 10-2 season where we look back and say, wow, and I'll say this as a challenge to myself. If I'm game after game coming here doing a post game saying, oh my God, how did we win that game? How did we do it? How did we pull it out? And we're doing that game after game after game, and we end up 10-2, kind of like we did in 2021.
21, yeah.
I need to say, this isn't so great. The record is a little
Yeah,
bit.
it doesn't feel right.
It doesn't. It is above where we actually are. So I want us to win convincingly. I'd like to see us. I think a 10-2 season where we're winning convincingly would be fantastic. I think an 8-4 season where we're just barely losing is one we'll argue, and it's probably 2 expectations. But there we can say it just depends. If we got lucky to be 8-4, I'm not going to feel so good about it. If we got unlucky to be 8-4, I'm going to feel pretty good about it. My barometer, I don't know. I hate to be a little, and so this is where being a homer, if you will, works against a guy. I'm going to say 9-3 is too early, way too early prediction on where I think OU should be next year. And if we're not 9-3 or better, I'm disappointed.
I have to see the schedule before I.
Sure.
Because
see the schedule. See the games.
what,
You have
the
to see
schedule.
the games.
What's that?
Well, you see,
It's-
we
what's
don't set the
today?
schedule till like the day before the games.
What is
I think.
today? January 17th.
Yep.
I mean, we haven't seen a Big 12 schedule yet.
Eight.
They're
18th.
working through
18th.
the
I
algorithms.
mean, what are we doing
to see
Big
how
12 conference?
much we can screw up OU.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's very frustrating, and it can't be good from a standpoint of trying to, I don't know, just generate marketing and generate excitement and sell season tickets. It's like you're trying to make people forget about football.
Yeah.
You look at, you've got now how many teams are in this damn conference?
14.
14 teams in this conference, 14 fan bases, plus everyone else nationally that are interested in
People
what
are
you're
trying to
doing.
schedule their
Inquiring
vacation.
minds want to know.
I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to get to go to Provo or not.
Some people,
Or
exactly,
Cincinnati.
they want to know where they're going.
The
what
rumor
are they
is
doing?
we are going to Provo and Cincinnati. We are not playing either Kansas school
And
or
UCF,
Houston.
UCF
will
coming
be in
into
Norman.
town. Yeah.
That's the rumor.
Wait, who are we not playing? Kansas, but we have two
Kansas
more that we
State,
wouldn't play.
Houston. That's 3.
It's 3. Who would be the 4th? Iowa State, maybe.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't not have us play
But we
all
would
3.
play. We would play the other 3 newcomers.
We play
2 away
at
and 1
Provo,
home.
at Cincinnati, UCF at home. No Kansas or Kansas State, and I think Baylor was maybe the other one that was possibly left out. So, speaking of left out, this Oklahoma
this is
basketball
ugly.
team is probably not a tournament team the way things are looking. We had a lead at halftime. Now we're down by 9 with less than 4 minutes.
Pretty
OSU's
frustrating.
taking this game over. Mike Boynton took his orange blazer off, and now they're fired up.
Yeah, he's joining the student section.
Well, what else do we have to cover in looking ahead? We got a spring game coming. They announced it today. It's April 22nd. We don't know the time yet. Let's hope
Arnold versus Gabriel.
weather permits.
I'm taking the Arnold.
For a good showing.
We'll all be there.
All right, let me give you a question. Will we have attendance will we be the number 1 attended spring game again this year? That's the first question.
Okay.
To what percentage will we compare to the prior one?
There will be 20,000 less people there this year than the
So like
than
80% of the attendance of the prior
than
one
last
or so.
year.
Or
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I don't even think it's that much.
I don't even think it's that much either.
I think we might get half the attendance.
I think
Maybe.
we'll be. What was the attendance last year? Was it 70,000?
75?
I'm going to
70,
say
75.
I'm going to say 50,000 show up. For
I'm
this
gonna
game,
say
purely for
30,000.
Jackson Arnold.
I'm going to say
and Kyler
30,000.
if they do the trophy.
And yeah, if
Or the
Kyler
statue.
comes back for a statue, that will definitely help.
I'm saying between 30 and 35,000 is my range.
I'll take the over, but not by much. I'll say you're around 50,000.
Weather's also a factor.
Weather's a huge factor. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's as good a weather. We had great weather last year. I'm assuming it's great weather. I'm assuming that a lot of fans forget the fact that OU completely screwed up the ticketing situation and everything else, so the gate situation, so that people couldn't get in and they were waiting in line as the game was starting. People are going to want to see Jackson Arnold and the other, all the other guys. The newcomers, which we got quite a few of them that are going to be in that game.
The running backs.
They're going to want to see all of that.
Want to see Barnes and Sawchuk.
They're going to want to see Kyler if we do the statue. They're going to want to support it, but it won't be as optimistic and magical, and so you're going to lack. So I'm going to take 50, but it won't surprise me if Connor is right as far as going underneath that number.
I have a major talking point that I want to bring up that I haven't talked to you guys about.
Oh, good.
You're moving out of the end zone.
That will never happen.
Oh,
if
man.
I was a billionaire, I would still sit in the end zone. There's no changing that.
That's stupid.
The Crimson
That's
and Cream.
why you will never be a billionaire.
Crimson and
Decisions
Cream
like that.
NIL initiative, whatever they're calling it.
Okay.
I have seen a lot of Twitter shaming by various people that essentially you're not a real fan unless you're donating this $25 a month or whatever the minimum
Really?
is.
Really?
That if you can't sit back and complain about what this team looks like if you aren't donating to this NIL.
So the people that are donating $25 a month are probably people who should not be spending $25 a month on an NIL
that's my-
collective.
Or there are different groups. There's 2 groups. There is well, there's probably at least 3 groups. One is people that shouldn't be. 2 is people that $25 a month doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so don't give me a lecture about how much I should spend because money is an object for you. And then another group is a group that legitimately really wants to do this, and they're probably not the one engaging in the Twitter shaming.
So my thing is, we all have season tickets. We've all
I don't.
made major road trips. We've flown across the country for games. UCLA. I've been Tennessee, Ohio State, every Big 12 stadium other than Texas. I haven't been to, obviously, because we do the Cotton Bowl.
Right.
But I've put plenty of money out of my pocket into supporting this team in various sports, not just football.
Beyond that.
Beyond that,
Beyond that, if I were to put some kind of a meter on your life, I guarantee you I could count in months, not days, months, maybe years, how many it has taken off your life when OU hasn't done well.
Yeah.
You put your heart into it and you love it.
yeah.
And so, and I know how much you love it in winning and losing. So part of it is what money you put into it, and part of it is just the way you
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
you
Time,
know?
effort, stress level.
Exactly. How much does it bother you a week later when OU loses a game, especially a big game?
I mean,
how much
we're doing a pod right now where there's no game involved whatsoever, and we're still.
and we're getting worked up.
Yeah, we're
Measure
getting worked
my
up.
blood pressure.
Right. So, I think it's ridiculous that people are shaming other people, no matter how much disposable income they have, for not putting money into the collective, and you're not being a true fan
That's
or
ridiculous.
whatever
That's
nonsense
ridiculous.
I've
It's
seen
it is
online.
so on par with OU Twitter though, guys. I mean, like that. As
And
mu-
it's so many. It's not just OU.
It's
so
not.
many
No,
programs.
it's not. But it's just you let everyone have a voice, which it's great. Like in its essence, it's great. I'm glad people
well,
have
the
a
essence
platform.
of Twitter and social media and everything.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just so people are so wildly just outlandish with some of the things they say and think behind a screen.
We also haven't seen where this money's going.
Right. Give
So
me some accounting.
Do we know that
Yeah,
there's
give me
any
a statement.
that this is actually going to help the university
Right.
in any way whatsoever?
Right. Prove to me.
Yeah, prove to me that this $25 a month is getting us better players,
Yeah.
or improving facilities, or whatever
What's
it
it
is
doing?
you want to call it.
You asking me for an investment.
Right.
Where's it going?
Until I see something like that, it hasn't even crossed my mind to give $1 to any of these things, because not to say that I've spent enough already, but you want to factor in how many OU sweatshirts and shoes and
Well, you know
all
what
the
you're
other stuff I
getting when
bought.
you buy a ticket.
Yeah.
And this doesn't tell you anything about what you're getting. This is ridiculous that people are. That's the mystical idea that people have that money conquers all. And that if you just put the money in, it's going to solve all the problems. And we do that in every regard in this world. We throw our wallets at it. And worse yet, we throw other people's wallets at it. And this is another example of people trying to throw other people's wallets at a problem, thinking that's going to solve anything. If anything, it's worrisome because I don't want to just fund this, because if there's a whole lot of money sloshing around, that breeds bad incentives. Without accountability, that could be really bad things. That could be a detriment to the program.
I see this more for people that live out of state and maybe can't go to OU games due to that circumstance, or even people that just want to root for OU at home and don't want to bother with with the TV packages
Sure,
they have
sure.
nowadays, the 4K TV, everything where it's just as easy to watch it at home, but you're not giving $1 to OU in any other aspect. If you want to spend $25 a month, could you think it's going to get us better players? Go ahead, but you shouldn't be shamed
No.
for the hardcore fans like us that do everything else involved around the university.
Yeah,
But we're not adding to
That
that.
is ridiculous. There's no reason to believe, and that's nothing more than faith-based donation, to believe that that's going to lead to success on the football field. Why would we believe that necessarily is going to do anything?
Yeah.
And to do it, they may be part of the problem before they're part of a solution. That
And all the NIL stuff is so new too.
look at A&M and the guys they bought with NIL.
Yeah.
Do we want that?
We had the new thing of saying that every single player is going to get paid something. Don't know dollar figures. We chastised
You need accountability.
Texas for paying every offensive lineman $50,000 or whatever that number was going into this season, thinking that that's kind of a joke that you're just going to pay an entire set of players on one
offensive
side of
lineman,
the ball.
$50,000 per offensive lineman that we
Yeah.
heard floated around about this time last year.
But I think they did that. But with that, at least, I mean, with that, you know exactly where where those dollars are going.
I just want accountability, and I am the biggest supporter of NIL or that type of a world as we can get. But it doesn't mean we just write blank checks and everybody is supposed to give money, and you're not a real fan if you don't give money. That's insane. That is just that's a really, really bad system.
I just wanted to bring that up because we really haven't talked
That
about
fires
that at
me
all.
up. No, I haven't really noticed that. I guess I just don't pay attention to it.
And it's not the university coming out and shaming
No,
people, but
no,
it's
it's
I mean,
these
OU Twitter
fans.
can be toxic, and we've shown that we can go after certain people in the media, you know, on the other side that were always either doubting us or pumping up the USC shit and all that stuff. But and I think a lot of that's fun, you know, when
Yeah.
people post to Twitter of
Rivalry.
all the girls at the party staring at the camera. I think that's hilarious.
I do too. I think that's
but
great.
I don't think OU fans need to be shaming other OU fans for not donating to something that we don't even know anything about.
It's
Honestly,
a really bad idea and a bad, just it shows the shallowness of a lot of folks and their idea that if you're the university, you've got to be a little frustrated by that because if you damned if you do and damned if
Yeah,
you
you wanna
don't. If
alienate.
you get a lot of people that do it, then they want instant results, and you're trying to be accountable to a guy who gave $300 over the course of a year, and he expects that you're going to win a national championship next year, and he's demanding results as if he's a guy who donated $300 million. It's
Yeah.
like, this is ridiculous. Like, slow your roll, man. It just doesn't work that way. And the idea that we are, the difference between winning and losing is a few thousand fans giving $25 a month or not, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the difference maker. It can be a positive contribution if it's done right. Show me that it's done right before you start
Right.
shaming me for
Yeah.
not doing it. Come on. Oh, that's ridiculous. That's bad. But on that note, we are starting NIL, and if you don't get to it, you are.
Yeah, you suck.
What would worry me is, like, I mean, that's here in the age of the latest version of it is FTX and SBF and all that group. That's scary. There could be a guy out there who is getting one heck of a scheme going where he's got an NIL franchise and he's going to get a bunch of donations and lo and behold his expenses are 90% of their operation and it all goes to his salary. So
next thing you
better
know,
want
we're going to
some
start shaming
accountability.
listeners for not sponsoring us. or
Right,
something like
exactly. Yeah, you got to sponsor us
Yeah,
if you
start
want.
sponsoring if you want to listen to us. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, that's
guys.
ridiculous.
That's stupid. That's dumb. Well, any other topics to mention or bring up? I don't have anything else on my list. I think
OU
we
is going to
covered
lose
it
this
all.
basketball game against OSU.
That's sad. That's frustrating. It's
OU looks bad, and OSU looks like they just, it was, yeah.
OSU's not a very good basketball
is a
team.
very
and
tough
we're
conference.
Just not. It is a tough conference.
matter how
this
you
is
slice
not
it,
one of the tough teams.
I was talking with some people the other day, and this OU team would probably be, if we were in the SEC right now, we would probably be the
Top half.
sixth best team in the SEC. But in this conference, we're 8 or 9 because the conference is so tough.
It's so tough and it's not deep enough. It's a real detriment to having only 10 teams in your league.
Beat each
Yeah.
other up.
That'll improve for the league once we're gone and the other 4 teams are in. And so next year, I guess when there's 14 teams, we'd be in a better spot. But
Well, Houston's
It's
the number 1
tough.
team in the country. They'll be joining the Big 12.
Yeah.
Next year's basketball conference.
Well,
Cincinnati's really good, and Houston.
Are they really good? Are they good?
They've traditionally been pretty good.
Right, I
I
don't
think
know
they're
if
pretty good this year.
So BYU's
but Houston's number 1
not.
in the
UCF
country.
is not. So you add 2 really good and 2 really bad.
Yeah.
Or pretty bad maybe. Well, it's a mixed bag. It's hard to know. That's a tough spot to be in. I think that we should demand a little better there too. I think we should expect that we'd be better than we are.
Yes.
It's just the same story, a
I
different
mean, it's
year,
a second
man.
year at
It's
Moser,
just-
so I guess we'll see what happens.
This looks like every other OU basketball team that we've fielded outside of maybe the Buddy Hield team in the past decade.
Yeah.
It's always just short of being a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is sad because we've traditionally been just short of being a great team and occasionally are a great team.
But it's a good thing that we're a softball school.
That's right. We're a softball and gymnastics school, and that's where we excel, and that's what we are all about. So join us for a gymnastics pod coming up
Why don't you
shortly.
give us a shout on Twitter if you want us to start covering, more basketball, more baseball,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I
Tell
plan
us.
on going to quite a few baseball games this year.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. We'll talk about in the off season. We're going to talk about some off season pod topics. I've got a bunch of argumentative takes that I'd like to get your views on. You guys and Jay. We've got some. Well, there'll always be developments and things to talk about. Who knows? We may be talking about a new coordinator that we need to bring in because we've lost somebody, and new coaching changes, or we just may be excited about coming into spring practice and what's going to go on there. And then, of course, we'll have the slow, long period and the buildup of expectations going into fall camp. So
Probably
it's gonna
throw
be
out
a
some
fun-
top 5 lists. Last
Oh,
year
we're
we
gonna
did
have
our
some good
we did our
top
favorite
5.
running backs,
Yeah, we're gonna do some
stuff
good
like that. Our
top
favorite
lists.
OU away games.
Yeah, we got a
If
lot
you've got
of
any
good
suggestions,
stuff. Yeah, just
we're
throw it out
happy
there.
to
We'll-
give our opinion if you got any ideas out there.
Absolutely. We'll cover all of that and more. It's going to be an exciting off season. It's going to be an off season. I think we've set the tone. We're going to be a little critical. We got some things to talk about. Anything else for the cause? Well, until next time, Boomer.
Sooner.